Present to you great food.
So, it is a pleasure to be here. First of all, can everybody hear me without the microphone?
Yes.
This morning I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about how you as an individual, whether you're a realtor, support person, can go from average to fortune. Now, whatever fortune is, and fortune is a little bit different to every person. I want you to think about what it is that you really want out of your life, and I want to share some ideas that I know have made a difference in my life, and hopefully can make a difference in yours. If you've got some note paper, you might want to take some notes, and hopefully these will be useful and valuable. But I want you to think about the puzzle of life. We're here, and we have a bunch of things to try and figure out. And I want you to think about what it is that takes and makes life worthwhile. What is it in your life that's truly valuable? And then, what makes life really work well? What are the key things that make our life feel good? Make your life truly meaningful? Everything, values, truly making a difference. And it was interesting, I got into real estate in the 70s, started doing well. In 1979, I was a top producing agent for Century 21 in Mission Viejo, California. And it was a very competitive office. That year, the number 1 and 2 agents in the entire country for Century 21 were in the office I was in. Barbara Sundin set all kinds of records for sales. And I was just the number 8 agent. But I was still doing pretty well, could not believe the money I was making. I thought, this has got to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But at the end of 1979, my wife asked me for a divorce. I could not believe it. I said, look at, we have this beautiful house. Look at the money we're making. Look at our lifestyle. She said, Greg, I married you. You married real estate. And I made a classic mistake. I let real estate become my life. I fell in love with it in so many different ways. So, being rather young and stupid, I tried something brilliant. I said, well, I have a great idea. Why don't I buy a real estate office? And then I'll just have to manage. I'll have a lot more time off. She bought that line. So in 1980, I bought a real estate office. I don't know if anybody remembers 1981 in real estate. Interest rates shot up to 18%. The marketplace sort of crashed. I got a crash course in the brokerage business. My experience as a broker is that I went broker and broker and broker. By the middle of 1981, I was in serious financial trouble. I had tried to be a non-competing broker, so I gave my sales career, tried to be a managing broker, but it was not working well. So I hired a guy by the name of Jim Rohn to come and do some consulting with me. I'd gone to a couple of his leadership and personal development seminars, and I hired him to come and try and help me figure out how to get my office on track. And he shared with me some ideas that truly revolutionized almost every aspect of my life. And they can truly be incredibly powerful for you. Now, when he came to work and helped me try and fix this mess I had created, what do you suppose he told me my number one problem was? Why things weren't working well for me. And he said, it was interesting, Greg. He said, I think you've got a philosophical problem. Now, if you would have asked me at that point in time, if I had a philosophy problem, I would have said, you're nuts. What does philosophy have to do with anything? I couldn't quite understand his whole point, because I thought my problems were related to what? What do you think I thought my problems were related to? The market, the economy. And he asked me to make a list. He said, Greg, tell me, why is it that you don't think your office is doing well? Would you make a list for me so we can go through them, see how we can fix them? And I put together this list, and the first thing on the list was the economy, the government policies, the interest rates. So we started talking about these, and he said, Greg, now I just want to make sure that I understand this. So the reason your real estate company is not running well is the government policies, the interest rates, all these things going on right now. I said, well, yes. He said, so Greg, if this is true, that means that there are no real estate companies doing well right now. I said, well, no, there are some. And he said, now, are you sure, Greg? Do those companies work in a different country? Do they have different governments? Different interest rates? I said, well, no. He said, now, if there are real estate companies that are doing well, in the same economy, the same situation, the same marketplace that you're in, and they're doing well and you're not, do you really think it's the economy? I did not like him. I said, well, I don't know. So he said, well, what else could it be? I said, it's my agents. The idiots don't listen to me. I tell them what to do. I tell them what I did. I try and get them to do it. They don't. Then he asked me a question. He said, Greg, who hired the idiot agents? I said, I did. He said, why? I said, all the other guys are the good ones. And then he kept asking me, what else do you think is causing your problems? And I said, well, you know, it's my negative relatives. It's all these things out there. Finally, after going through all this stuff very patiently, he said, Greg, big problem with your list. You aren't on it. I said, Jim, I'm getting the feeling you think I'm the problem. He said, Greg, I don't think you're the problem. I know it. The problem is you don't know it. And he says, until you know you're the problem, you have no chance. He said, just out of curiosity, Greg, what is your chance of changing the interest rates as an individual, roughly? I said, well, not very good. He said, so you aren't going to change the interest rates, you aren't going to change the economy, you aren't going to change anything, all these things out there that you think are your problems, you have literally no chance of changing. And if you don't acknowledge that you're the problem, you will never, ever be able to change. You'll never be able to make a difference because none of those things you can change. He says the one thing you can change is you. And he says it starts with your philosophy. It's how you look at things. I said, well, what is philosophy? And he said, well, philosophy is everything that you know and starts with what you decide to take action on. He says, believe it or not, every day you are living your philosophy. Unfortunately, most people don't think about their philosophy, they just go through life. And they don't refine it, they don't really take the time to really get a clear idea, what is my philosophy about? What do I really want to accomplish? So my life works incredibly well. He said, Greg, I mean, you realize the way your real estate business works, the way your life functions today, is exactly how you have designed them to function. Now, for me, this was a shock. But it took me a while to finally realize that he was right. We have designed everything in our life to function exactly the way we want it to function. We don't even realize sometimes that we enjoy the problems, the challenges that we create for ourselves. He said the good news is once you acknowledge that, you can actually go to change. He says for most people it's easier to blame all those external things, the company policies, their negative relatives, all these other things, than it is to blame their philosophy and their lack of refinement. But he said if you will change that, and go to work on your own personal development, your own personal refinement of philosophy of what you want to accomplish, your life can work out however you want it to. And I really want to challenge you with that, because no matter where you are, if you will go to work on you, it has a huge opportunity. He said, Greg, success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And I found that to be very true. Then he gave me the great promise. He said, Greg, you can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. And I will pass that on to you today as incredible wisdom. You can have whatever you want because you can become a different person. Now, if you understand this, you realize the major key to your better future is you. Jim said, Greg, you've got to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Now, when I sort of got this, I realized why I had some challenges. I worked hard on my job, I worked hard in real estate, I worked hard as a Marine, but I didn't work hard on myself. I went to work in real estate, but I didn't work on my skills, my communication, my leadership, my relationship skills with my spouse. And if we will work harder on ourselves than we do on our job, the payoff is absolutely huge. The funny thing is, we tend to work hard on our job because they say we're going to pay us. We're going to get paid to work hard at work. What's the payoff of working hard on yourself? An incredible lifestyle. Living the life of your dreams. And we forget to pay, that's the real payoff. Living a life of joy, of satisfaction, of significance, not just getting through. I've also found that over the long run, your income rarely exceeds your personal development. Every now and then you might get lucky, hit a great streak in the economy, and your income will take a lucky jump, but unless you grow, it will quickly come back. If you have any doubt, read the research on lottery winners. It is absolutely staggering. Over the last 25 years, there's been an unprecedented number of lotteries around the world. A recent study published 3 years ago tracked people that had won multiple millions, over $2 million in the lottery. 82% of the people that won multiple millions, 10 years after they won the multiple millions, fully 82% of them said it was the worst thing that ever happened in their lives. Now, can you imagine that? Somebody gives you a couple $1 million, and 10 years later you say, oh my gosh, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I always thought, gosh, give it to me and let me try. Why is it that 82% of them, 10 years after they've won multiple millions, say it's the worst thing that ever happened to them? Because 10 years later, 82% of the people that won multiple millions are worse off financially than before they won the multiple millions. Why is that? They got the millions. What did they get? The discipline, the self-discipline, the understanding of money. And it's easy to blow it. How many think it wouldn't probably be that hard to spend a couple million? Until you have everything change, and now their only chance of getting back the good life that they've now had a taste of is winning the lottery again. The chances are slim. The average person, though, especially here in America, fails to reach for true greatness and true significance in lifestyle because here in America we have it pretty good. I see so many realtors. They're doing good. You guys are doing good. The marketplace is starting to come back. Things are good. And most of you don't have to worry too much about your survival. I do think it's amazing. Here in America, we forget how much we have to be grateful for. I mean, we live in America. We sell real estate in America. Where else are you going to go if you can't do well here? Somebody says, gosh, if I could just sell real estate in Bangladesh. Gosh, I bet there's all kinds of opportunity. No, there it would be hard. The rest of the world is coming here because of the incredible opportunities. So I'm going to realize most of us have it pretty good, though. 60% of the world does not know if they're going to eat tomorrow. We have it good. So what I want you to do is say, you know what? I don't want to settle for just a good life. You can truly make it extraordinary. Now, what happens in our lives doesn't determine the quality of our life. I used to think that problems somehow seem to be reserved for me. But I found that everybody has problems. Rich people, poor people, we all have problems. We all have what I call the happenings. Things happen. Now, it's not the happenings in our life that determines how it turns out. It's how we deal with all these things. And we all have challenges, so the question is, how do we want to deal with them? Here's the key thing that Jim taught me. He said, Greg, stop wishing for less difficulty. Wish you had more skills. I remember so clearly one day I was complaining bitterly to Jim about my agents. How they wouldn't listen to me. How I'd given a training class on prospecting and how most of them did not take it and actually put it into action. After he listened to me gently complain for a while, he said, Greg, have you ever thought it may not be your own agents? I said, well, no. Of course it's my agents. I told them. I trained them. I told them what to do. They don't do it. He said, well, Greg, have you ever thought it may not be that your agents aren't willing to listen? Have you ever thought it could be your inability to communicate effectively to them? He said, have you ever thought if you got better at communication, better at telling the story, that they would actually listen to you? And until he asked me that question, I can honestly say I never thought that it could possibly be me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized he was probably right. So many times, we like to blame our kids, our spouse. Gosh, if our spouse would just listen. If your spouse is not listening, let me tell you, it's probably not your spouse. It's your lack of effective communication. See, I want you to realize, if you will start refining your communication, your ability to reach people, it will make such a huge difference. And we tend to miss little things. And I want you to start thinking about the little refinements in communication. What if you meant to say to somebody, gosh, what's troubling you? And instead, you said, what's wrong with you? See, it's just a little difference, but it's so powerful in the impact. And today I'm going to get good at your communication, at your thinking. How am I affecting everything that's going on, the people that I'm coming across? Now, understand that struggle is not a problem. Struggle will give you strength. It's a resource, and it helps us find the edge of our true capacities. Now, it's interesting. I found that as human beings, we tend to only truly find joy and happiness when we're pushing the edge of our true capacity, when we're tapping into our full personal development. So this morning, I would like to challenge you with the opportunity to change. Now, if you will change, everything will change for you. And that's what personal development is. It's the challenge to tap into your full potential as a human being so that you can become everything that you want to be. Now, as you're going to work on your life, I'm going to realize you've got to take nothing for granted. So many times, we think about personal development in terms of work. And I want you to realize that you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure your entire life is put into your personal development plan. See, the first time around, I got into real estate, fell in love with real estate, put together a plan to do well in real estate, made money in real estate, but did not have a life. Do you suppose when I bought my real estate office that I now ended up working more or less? I was now working even more. What kind of an impact do you think this had on my marriage? Was this a positive or negative? Now I had no money and no time. Made my wife even more unhappy. Now, with a little bit of help from Jim, I realized I was probably never going to get out of the financial debt that I had created for myself as a manager. So I went back into actually selling real estate as an active sales manager. In 1982, I launched a marketing campaign targeting an upscale set of homes in Mission Viejo, California. That year I sold 118 homes, rescued myself financially, but it cost me a marriage. At the end of 1982, I did get divorced. As part of that divorce, I sold a real estate office. And I realized I paid way too high of a price. Today, I don't want that to happen to you. At the time I sold the real estate office, I thought I'd take a few months off and then get back into actively selling real estate. I'd become friends with Jim because we sort of had bonded as he was working with me. They said, why don't you come to work for me? Why don't you come do my marketing, travel with me doing some of my personal development seminars? And I went to work for Jim Rohn. I spent 2 years working for Jim. And I will tell you, it made such a huge difference. And I had an opportunity to realize you could have it all. A few years later, I met an incredible lady, convinced her to marry me. We have 3 boys. We've traveled now around the world. And Jen and I are getting ready to celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary in just a couple of months.
Yay.
And I will tell you, you can't have it all. But here's the key. You've got to put your plan for your personal life right into your business plan, your activity. The second time around, I got it right. I said, I'm going to commit to time off. And here's a couple of great things, especially as real estate agents. I want you to realize it's so easy to let this industry consume you. How many of you can remember getting to the end of the day as a real estate professional and looking down, looking at your desk and saying, oh my goodness, I'm done. There is nothing else I could possibly do to further my real estate career. How many of you can remember getting there? No, there's always something else you can do. And unless you commit to when you're going to take off, it can consume you so quickly. So here's a great piece of advice. If you're struggling in real estate 7 days a week, try it in 6, it's a lot more fun. Take time off, take at least 1 or 2 days off, and when you're off, make sure it's off. I know with technology today, it's so easy to be contacted anywhere, everywhere, but you got to turn that off. You got to say, you know what, I'm going to be with the people that matter to me. I found that most people, when they're at work, they're worried about the impact of things happening on their family. Then they take off and they're worried about what's going on at work. When you're at work, work. When you're at home, be home. And you'll find it makes so much more of an impact then. Every fall, sit down with the significant people in your life and plan the next year's vacations. Take at least 1 long weekend every single month throughout the year. Then at least 3 weeks of vacation. Real estate's a stressful business. You need time to recharge, replenish. You know, somebody even told Greg, I'm going to take a long weekend as soon as it's convenient. When do you think you will stumble upon a convenient long weekend? See, it'll never happen. So what you have to do is every fall you sit down and say, I'm going to plan it out, go out the year. And I will tell you, this made such a huge difference for me. It's one of the reasons the second time around I got it right. And I want to share with you some key elements that helped me go from average to fortune and can make a difference for you as well. And there's just 4 philosophical points of view that will help you go from average to fortune. And the first thing I want you to do is get serious. I will tell you there's nothing more important than getting serious about your own life. Life is a serious battle. The battle is on between good and evil. Communism, capitalism, sickness, health. See, I found that sickness is always right at the edge of your health plan. You start just relaxing a little bit, and guess what? It's ready to creep on in. I have found that this is a pushed-up world, so you've got to get serious about your own future. You've got to get serious about what it is that you really want out of your own life. Start by getting serious about refining your philosophy, defining it clearly, refining it over time. Your philosophy is what determines how your life turns out. And I really want you to think about it. One philosophy says, always do more than you get paid for. Another philosophy says, get away with everything you can. The guy says, gosh, I'm coming in late. I'm leaving lunch early, taking it, stretching it, leaving a little early. And he says to himself, gosh, I've got it made to the best of my ability. I'm getting paid for working part-time. And he thinks he's got it made. What's the problem with that philosophy? See what it makes of you in the long run. See, if you have a philosophy that says, gosh, I'm going to always give more than I'm paid for. I'm going to always make that extra effort. Why? Because you're going to invest in your own skills, your own value. Jim said, Greg, if you will always give your very best, always do more than you got paid for, you're investing in your abilities, and it's going to create the next opportunity. So many people say, well, gosh, if that's all they pay, if that's their lousy commission split here, why should I work hard? Why should I go? Why? Because what it makes of you as a person, see, it's a refinement of philosophy, and it's how we think about it. Get serious about defining your vision for your life and your career. This is one of the things that I'm always amazed at. Some people say, okay, I just want to do better. I said, what does that mean? I want to make more money. Well, how much more? Well, more. So, if I gave you an extra $1, how many would be totally happy? That's more. People say, well, no, $1 wouldn't do it. Well, how much more? See, unless you have a clear vision of your future, what are your chances of making it a reality? Roughly. See, it's hard. See, most of us are just drifting along saying, well, gosh, it's pretty good, so I'm not going to sweat it. But you could go for so much more if you got a vision of what you wanted to accomplish. Ask yourself, 5 years from now, where will you be? I guarantee you this. The next 5 years are going to go incredibly fast. How many can believe how fast the last 5 years have gone? 5 years is going to go by very quickly. 5 years from now, you will certainly arrive. The question is where? What I found is if you today sit down and put together a vision and plan, the things you want to accomplish over the next 5 years, you can make it a reality. On the other hand, you just sort of say, well, gosh, it's pretty good. I'm just going to keep drifting. I'm going to keep going along. You will not make nearly the same progress. You won't nearly have the same impact, the influence on the people that you care about, your family. So you get clear about your vision. Now, I know it takes time. Because Greg, create a vision, it's work. I got to think about what I really want, what's important, create my values, my priorities. Yes. And that's how you live an extraordinary life, so get serious about it. I have a question. How many of you know if you showed me your 5-year plan for your life here this morning, how many would be totally blown away? I'd be so impressed and say, wow, what a plan. I got to steal some ideas from you. How many know that excited? See, if you don't think I'd be excited, I know you're probably not excited either. So what's got you turned on? Maybe you got to ask yourself, what's got you turned off? I love the quote from Alice in Wonderland. The cat said, would you tell me which way do you think, it starts with Alice. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? And somehow, I don't know why, I don't have Alice up there, but the first one should be from Alice. The cat says, well, it depends a good deal on where you want to go. The cat says, or the Alice says, I don't really much care where. The cat says, well, then it doesn't really matter which way you go. And I want you to realize if you don't care where you go, it really doesn't matter. If you care where you're going to end up 5 years from now, you've got to get serious about it. Serious about the kind of person you want to become. The legacy you want to leave. The kind of parent that you want to become. The kind of spouse that you want to become. Jim said, Greg, you do not become a great spouse by chance. You become a great spouse by plan. And I want you to think about it. How many of you want to be a great parent, a great spouse, a great influence on the people in your family? So the question is, we all say, I want to do this. How much time do you give to it? How many hours a week do you invest in becoming a better parent? And becoming a better spouse? In doing the little things that could make a difference? So we say, well, gosh, who's got time to do that? It's busy here. Real estate's demanding. You get home, you're tired, you got to watch a little TV. Who's got time to think about being a better spouse? See, and then we wonder why we drift along. Get serious about your health plan, your sales plan, your wealth plan. And if you will get serious, it will make such a huge difference on the direction that you go. Unfortunately, most people major in minor things. I found there's a few things, typically just a few things in every area of your life that make a huge difference. It's called the 80-20 rule. And the question is, are you investing your time in the important things? Or are you investing in all the busy work? There's so many things, especially in real estate, that fake you out because you feel like you're making progress. There's busy work. But busy work does not add to productivity. So make sure you're majoring in the things that make a huge difference. And this will make such a big difference for you. Start by getting serious about the fundamentals. Now the good news is there are only a few fundamentals in life. And the fundamentals are old. If somebody comes to you and says, let me tell you, I've got some new fundamentals for you, be a little wary. See, there are no new fundamentals. Truth is old. Now, there may be a new way of looking at it, a new way of thinking about it, but you've got to be wary because the things that make the biggest difference have been around for a long time. If somebody comes up to you and says, listen, come over to my factory, we're manufacturing antiques. You got to be a little concerned, so you can't manufacture antiques. So get serious about the fundamentals, the things that are most important to you in your life. Now, the next thing we need to do is get smart. And I'm not talking necessarily about intelligence. I just want you to get the information. And the good news is today, there is no reason not to get all the information you need about anything and everything. There's simply nothing worse than not knowing. Today, the wisdom of the world is at your fingertips. It's on the internet. It's amazing what you can get to. If you will search, it says you will find. But to find, you must be searching. Today, if you want to be a better parent, a better spouse, there's all kinds of information, books, seminars, training programs. But if you aren't looking, if you aren't trying to get better, chances are excellent you won't get better. What I found is that formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. Formal education teaches us how to get by. It's self-education. It's what we do outside. And are we committed to being lifelong learners, lifelong studies of how to get better, to do the best that we possibly can? If you want to be wealthy, study wealth. If you want to be happy, study happiness. But you got to make it a study. See, I didn't know happiness was a study until I met Jim. I thought happiness is something you achieved once you got to a certain financial income, a certain thing. He said, Craig, no, that's nothing to do with happiness. Happiness is a decision that you make. He says, if you want to live a happy life, you've got to learn how to be happy every day. If you think that you'll be happy once you hit a certain income level, once you have a relationship, once you have this, you're never going to make it. Because as soon as you get to that level, you're going to say, well, there's something else. So I want you to start studying the things that make a difference. Now, I also want you to think about the power of influence. This is one of the things that I think we tend to forget the older we get as adults. When we have kids, especially small kids, what are we concerned about in this area of influence? We want our kids to hang out with the right crowd. We don't want the negative influences. Why don't we want negative influences around our kids? Because we know they can get them going down the wrong path. And it's so easy to be influenced by those people around us. As adults, we forget that the power of influence is still there. The people you hang around with have a major influence on your life. And I will tell you, this is absolutely critical to think about. Every now and then I want you to take a step back and just ask yourself, who am I around? Who am I spending significant time with in my life? And then ask yourself, what direction are they taking me? Now, then ask, is that okay? And it's up to you, but you need to think about it. When I was struggling in real estate, I started hanging around with some people that were also struggling. And guess what we did? We commiserated. What kind of an influence do you think that had? Jim said, Greg, I'm going to hang around some people that will push you, tell you to stop your complaining, and start taking action. He says, if you want to do better, you need to hang around some people that are going to push you, grow. And I will tell you, I got that lesson. And it made such a huge difference. Hang around with a crowd that pushes you, makes you better, stretches you. Now, a couple things you might think about. You might think about some new associations. If you want to succeed in a positive direction in some area of your life, get around somebody that's already good at it. You say, gosh, Sally, you and your husband have got such an incredible relationship. I need to hang around with you guys, figure out your secrets. And maybe you need to go find some people that will associate with you if you're already a billionaire. Find a billionaire to hang out with. Say, gosh, I thought I was doing pretty well, but compared to the billionaire, I got some room. And maybe you need to expand some of those associations. Maybe around somebody that, gosh, has a positive influence, pushes you, inspires you, helps you grow. I mean, that's one of the things about Jim. When I had an opportunity to get around him, I wanted to spend as much time with him as I possibly could because I always felt better. I somehow knew I was capable of more just hanging around him. So think about, who do you want to expand your association with? Next, you might want to look at some of the people you're hanging around with and say, gosh, I need to limit the association. You know, I can afford to spend a few minutes, a few hours with them a week, but not a few days. I will tell you, after I got in the Marine Corps, I hung around with some of my Marine Corps friends that were not going exactly in a positive direction. We shared a common experience, but I will tell you, they didn't push me to go in the right direction and were probably taking me in the wrong. They drank a little bit too much, lived a little bit too hard. And I realized, gosh, I cannot afford to be around them if I really want to end up where I want to go in my life. And so think about some of the associations. Now this can be hard. I had some relatives that I had to limit the association with because they were such a negative influence in my life. And it's a little hard to do that with your own relatives. Somehow, there are some people that are so poisonous, so difficult, you've got to just disassociate and say, you know what, I cannot afford to be around you. And if that's the case, you need to make sure, because otherwise it won't cost you. Now, in this process of getting smart, getting the information, there are two ways to learn. And I would think about this, first of all, from your own personal experience. And then we can learn from other people's experience. Now, to learn from your own experience, though, you've got to evaluate your experience. And this is where so many of us don't learn. Look critically at the events of your life, of what's going on, and start to ask what worked, what didn't. This is so important, especially with your relationships. If you will take a little bit of time with relationships with your spouse, your kids, you can make a huge difference in this area. If you don't do this, you'll tend to repeat the same fights, the same arguments over and over and over again. Because the same tapes will keep playing in your brain. If you evaluate them and say, gosh, here seems to be the pattern. If I'm looking at it, say, here's what she says, here's what I say, here we go. And it's amazing, you start analyzing, thinking about it, it's easy to start catching the mistakes. Change your communication patterns. But you actually have to think about it. Thoreau had it right. The unexamined life is not worth living. Now, I'm not sure I'd go to that extreme, but let me tell you, you will repeat the same things unless you examine it. Let me give you a great suggestion. Use a journal. Carry a journal around with you. First of all, if you carry a journal around, you don't have to have a great memory, because you will now have a perfect memory. You write it down. It's amazing how things will be so much more powerful just writing them down. And you can go reference them. Now, you have a fight, you have a challenge. Write it down, analyze it, put it in your journal. Come back to read it again. A few days later, you cannot believe how you will look at it from a different perspective. Then, as you're going through these challenges you come across, you'll see a pattern emerge. This happened, that. Gosh, this looks like it's a pattern. You will find out so much faster if you will just keep a journal of your life. Write down what you've learned. Rarely is a good idea to interrupt you, so if one comes your way, capture it. And it will make such a huge difference for you. It's so simple, so easy, most of you will pass. You say, I like having that fight. I like having the same challenge with my kids. And I want you to realize it's so simple to change it, but it's easy not to do it. I have a question for you. Does keeping a journal sound like it would be very hard to do? No, it's fairly easy to do. People say, well, Greg, it's easy to do. Why don't most people do it? Because it's easy not to do it. See, I found that it's easy to do, but it's equally easy not to do. Here in Pennsylvania, has that wonderful saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, made it here? I have a question, what if that's true? Would that be easy? An apple a day? So how many are eating an apple a day? See why? Because it's easy not to. So make the commitment, an apple a day, start there, it's easy. Gosh. Now, you just got to do it every day. At 11:55, you have not eaten your apple. Start munching. See, it's easy to do the little things, but it's easy not to do them. And you'll learn more if you capture the things, refine them, reflect them. Now, another great way to learn is from other people's experience. Now, one of the great advantages of learning from other people's experience is it allows you to condense time. People have spent a lifetime taking their knowledge, their information, what they learned, putting it into a book. And now you can learn from that. It's a great condensation of time. Here's one of the things I found. Our own experience tends to take a lot of time. And it can cost you learning from your own experience. I have a question. If you wanted to become a doctor today, and you said, gosh, you know what? I don't really trust medical training facilities. So I'm going to figure it out all myself. I'm going to go buy a cadaver, memorize the muscles, skeleton. How long do you think, if you tried to teach yourself everything you need to know about medicine, you did it all by your own research, how long would it take you, roughly, to become a competent doctor? You probably wouldn't make it. You'd be dead before you ever got it. So I want you to realize you've got to learn from other people's experience. We tend not to learn because we think, gosh, it's not our experience. But I want you to learn from other people's experience so we can condense time. Start by taking a successful person to lunch once a quarter. I will tell you, this will make a huge difference. Jim sold me on this 30 years ago, 35 years ago. He said, Greg, every quarter, find a successful person, somebody you admire, somebody that's doing well, take them to lunch and pick their brain. I have been amazed at what an impact this has had on my life. I had an opportunity to meet Paul Mirage. Paul Mirage is the guy that started Hot Pockets, sold his company for a couple of $1 billion. And he donated $30 million to the University of California at Irvine. They named the business school after him there. I went to a banquet he was at, got introduced to him. And I said, Paul, could I take you to lunch? He's a billionaire. I thought there was absolutely no. He said, I would love to have you take me to lunch. I thought, oh my gosh, anybody is being happy to share their own information. And now, if you take a whole bunch of people that are successful over time, you take your journal, you take good notes, you will start to see certain patterns. One of the things I quickly learned is that wealth is not determined by how much you earn. It's determined by your plan. I've seen people make a fortune, end up destitute. I've seen people that didn't didn't seem like they would really become multimillionaires not because they made a lot of money in any one year, but they had a plan. I took a gentleman to lunch. He said, Greg, let me tell you, I became rich as a school teacher. I said, how do you do it? He said, I lived on the 70-10-10-10 plan. He said, I got it from a little book called The Richest Man in Babylon. He said, I was a school teacher for 30 years, and when I started by living on 70% of what I earned. He said, I never spent more than that. He said, every year, I saved 10% of what I took in for emergencies. 10% I invested. Started small, but kept investing. And 10% I gave to charities, causes that I cared about. And he said, 25 years later, I was able to retire independently. Not dependent upon a pension, not depending upon something else. He says, because I always lived on 70% of what I earned. He says, today, I can do anything, go anywhere, buy any car, buy anything. He says, and I'm still living on 70%. He says, it's not the amount that you make. So I see so many people, they make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, but they're spending $6. This is called How to Never Be Wealthy. See, it's not the amount, it's the plan. Now,